Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at some haunted objects with eerie backstories. And because I think you guys love the photos with backstories a lot, so as a bonus, I've included a photo with disturbing backstory as the last entry. Also, I'm genuinely curious to see how many of you guys actually believe that objects can be haunted or cursed. So comment below what you believe. Anyway, let's start today's video with the first haunted object, Thomas Busby's chair. If you ever visit the little museum in Thirsk, you'll spot something weird, an old wooden chair hanging from the ceiling. It's not art. It's there because the person who owned it demanded it never be sat on again. For 30 plus years, the museums obeyed, even when people complained or threatened lawsuits. Back in the 1700s, a grumpy troublemaker named Thomas Busby loved hanging out at his local pub, always sitting in his favorite oak chair. But one summer, his father-in-law Daniel Audie bought a farm nearby. Rumor says Daniel borrowed Busby's chair without asking. They fought. Daniel threatened to take Busby's wife, and that night, Busby snapped and killed him. Busby got caught, sentenced to death, and before hanging, he asked for one last drink in his chair. But as the alcohol burned his throat, he snarled a curse. "Death shall come swiftly to anyone who dares sit in my chair." Hours later, he swung from the gallows. The chair, however, lived on, and so did the curse. For centuries, the chair remained in the pub. Locals who ignored the warning met grisly fates. During World War II, airmen who sat in it never returned from missions. In 1967, two RAF pilots crashed their truck into a tree moments after testing the curse. A 1970s mason died the same day his butt hit the seat, plummeting into a construction pit. Even a roofer and a cleaning lady perished shortly after contact. Roof collapses, freak accidents, sudden sickness. The list goes on. The pub owner finally hid the chair in the basement, but the curse didn't stop. A delivery guy sat on it during a break and died in a car crash hours later. The owner panicked and gave the chair to the Thirsk Museum. Now it hangs high up, untouched. Staff won't go near it, like Busby's ghost still haunts it. Tutankhamun's tomb is one of archaeology's greatest discoveries. It was found in 1922 by Howard Carter in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. King Tutankhamun, often called King Tut, was a young pharaoh whose tomb was almost completely untouched by thieves, a rare find among Egyptian tombs. Many stories surround the tomb, especially about a curse known as the Curse of the Pharaohs. The legend says that anyone who disturbs the resting place of a pharaoh, whether they are visitors, thieves, or even archaeologists, will suffer bad luck or even death. After the tomb was opened, several people involved with the discovery died under strange circumstances. For example, Lord Carnarvon, a wealthy man who helped fund the expedition, died from an infected mosquito bite only 5 months after the tomb was opened. Other deaths from disease, murder, or suicide were also linked by some to the curse. Even Howard Carter, who discovered the tomb, is sometimes said to have been touched by the curse, although he lived for many more years after the discovery. It is important to know that many experts believe these deaths were just coincidences or had natural causes. The curse legend grew mostly because of the media attention at the time. The Hope Diamond. Our story starts in 1600s India, where a huge blue diamond, much bigger than the one we see today, was stolen. A French gem trader named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier got it in shady ways. Some say he stole it from a statue of a Hindu goddess. Others say it was already stolen by someone else. Either way, people believe the diamond was cursed because it was taken from a holy place. Tavernier sold it to King Louis XIV of France, who cut it into a smaller shape and wore it around his neck. But then, bad things started happening. Stories say Tavernier was killed by wild dogs later, but real records show he actually lived a long life and died old. King Louis XIV died from a bad infection, and his kids died young. A man named Nicolas Fouquet, who worked for the king, wore the diamond once and got thrown in jail for 15 years. Later, King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette were killed by guillotine during the French Revolution. Their friend, Princess de Lamballe, was beaten to death by a mob. The diamond disappeared but showed up again years later, linked to more deaths. A man murdered by his son, a king who lost all his money, and a rich family who died in a car crash off a cliff. Next, a banker named Henry Philip Hope bought the diamond, and it got his name. His family fought over it, and their lives fell apart with money problems. In 1910, a jeweler named Pierre Cartier bought the diamond, hoping its scary story would attract rich buyers. He sold it to Evelyn Walsh McLean, a wealthy woman who loved jewelry. Cartier told her the diamond's curse was a dark love story. He even mailed it to her to try to make her want it. She slept with it, became obsessed, and bought it for $5 million after a weird church blessing where lightning struck. Evelyn's life turned dark. Her son was hit by a car and died. Her husband went crazy, lost all their money, and they divorced. During the Great Depression, she sold the diamond for cash, but later got it back, hiding it in her dress. She said, "I'm safe from its curse," but she died of sickness at 60. The diamond went to a jeweler named Harry Winston, who gave it to the Smithsonian Museum in 1958. But the curse wasn't over. A delivery man who brought it to the museum had his wife die, his house burned down, and his dog choke, all in 1 year. A museum expert says most of the curse stories are fake. Tavernier wasn't killed by dogs. He died rich and old. Marie Antoinette never even wore the diamond. The curse was probably made up by Cartier to sell the diamond for more money. So why do people still believe it? Because scary stories stick around longer than facts. People still blame the diamond for bad luck, even though it's just a pretty rock. The Devil's Bible. Few ancient books have as creepy a reputation as the Codex Gigas, nicknamed the Devil's Bible. It gets its name from a massive 20-inch tall drawing of the devil taking up a whole page. Oddly, the devil faces a section about heaven, maybe hinting at the battle between good and evil. Made in the 1200s in what's now the Czech Republic, this book is famous for its huge size, over 3 feet tall and nearly a foot thick. It's wrapped in leather and metal and holds the entire Bible, plus creepy stuff like exorcism guides and magic spells. Some say it was meant to hold all human knowledge. The writing and art are so detailed, experts think it would take 25+ years to finish. If one person did it alone, it might have taken their whole life. But the wildest part, the dark legend of how it was made. A monk who broke his vows was sentenced to be sealed alive in a wall. To save himself, he promised to write a book of all knowledge in one night. When he couldn't finish, he sold his soul to the devil for help. The devil's picture, a thank you to Lucifer. There's also a mystery. 10 pages are missing. Stories say the book was sold by a poor monastery, ended up with a paranoid emperor, and later survived a fire. During the chaos, those pages fell out or were stolen. Some think they're hidden in a private collection. Today, the Devil's Bible sits in Sweden's National Library. Made of silver and weighing about 4 pounds, 2 kilograms, the Basano Vase seemed completely ordinary. If you saw it in an antique shop, you probably wouldn't even notice it. But despite its plain appearance, this vase is said to carry a deadly curse. What makes it so strange is that, while many sources list it as one of the most haunted objects in history, almost nothing is known about where it is now, or if it even still exists. But here's what we do know. The first mention of the vase dates back to the 15th century. According to legend, it was created in a small town in northern Italy, near Naples. It was meant to be a wedding gift for a young bride and was mysteriously delivered to her the night before her wedding. She thought it was a good luck charm, but the opposite turned out to be true. The next morning, she never showed up to her own wedding. Instead, she was found dead on the floor, holding the vase tightly in her hands. No one could explain what happened to her. That was just the beginning of a series of unexplained tragedies. After the bride's death, the vase passed to another family member, but they soon died under mysterious circumstances. The same thing happened to the next owner, and the next. Eventually, the family became convinced that the vase was cursed. To protect themselves, and anyone else who might come into contact with it, they decided to hide it away. And this is where things get even more mysterious. No one knows exactly how or where the vase was hidden. Some say a priest locked it away, while others believe the family simply buried it. Whatever the truth, the vase disappeared for centuries, until it resurfaced in 1988, bringing death and mystery along with it. The details of its discovery vary, but it's said that a man unearthed the vase in his backyard. Inside, he found a chilling note that read, "Beware, this vase brings death." He ignored the warning and sold the artifact at an auction, making about $3,000 from the sale. The buyer was a pharmacist who thought he had made a great purchase, but within 3 months, he was dead from an unexplained illness. His family quickly sold the vase to a doctor, who met the same fate. The next owner, an archaeologist, also died just a few months after acquiring the vase, and this pattern continued. No matter who owned the vase, they would soon fall ill and die. Eventually, the curse caught up to one last buyer. But instead of selling it again, their family, now fully aware of the vase's reputation, wanted nothing more to do with it. Desperate to break the curse, they threw it out the window. So, was that the end of the curse? Not quite. The vase almost hit a police officer as it crashed to the ground. He picked it up, brought it back to the family, and fined them for littering. They paid the fine but refused to take the vase. The police tried to donate the artifact to a museum, but no institution wanted it. Despite its historical value, no one was willing to take the risk. So, once again, the vase vanished. Some say an officer buried it in a remote location, while others claim it was hidden in a cemetery. Either way, it hasn't been seen since. But while the Basano Vase left behind a trail of tragedy, it also left behind a lot of unanswered questions. The story is full of holes. There are no official records of its past owners, and there's only one blurry photo of it. Even its design doesn't quite match vases from the 15th century. And how did the curse even work? It didn't seem to affect those who just touched the vase, only those who owned it. But how would the curse know who its owner was? Some believe it was triggered when the vase was opened, but there's no proof of that either. This old cauldron might look like any ordinary cooking pot, but it has a very dark past. It belonged to Ed Gein, a man from Plainfield, Wisconsin, who committed terrible crimes that shocked the world. Ed Gein was not only a murderer, but also a body snatcher. He lived alone on a quiet farmhouse where he did things that are hard to imagine. When police searched his home, they found this cauldron and, much to everyone's horror, discovered human remains inside it. This discovery showed just how evil and cruel his actions were. Before Gein used it for his grisly deeds, the cauldron was just a simple kitchen item. However, because of what happened in that farmhouse, it became a symbol of fear and horror. The Annabelle doll. In 1970, a woman named Donna received a large Raggedy Ann doll as a birthday gift from her mother. She was a nursing student living in an apartment with her friend Angie. At first, the doll seemed normal, but soon, strange things began happening. Donna and Angie noticed the doll would move on its own. It would sit in a different position than they left it, like cross-legged or lying down. Sometimes they'd come home to find it in another room. They even found small handwritten notes on parchment paper, but neither of them owned parchment paper. A friend named Lou, who didn't believe in ghosts, made fun of the stories. One night, he had a nightmare about the doll attacking him. When he woke up, the doll was on his chest, and he couldn't move. Later, he found deep scratches on his chest that vanished quickly. Scared, Donna and Angie asked a medium, someone who talks to spirits, for help. The medium claimed the doll was haunted by the spirit of a girl named Annabelle Higgins, who died at age 7 on the property where their apartment now stood. The women felt bad for the spirit and let the doll stay. But the activity got worse. Lou visited again and heard rustling in Donna's room. When he checked, no one was there, but the doll slid up his leg and grabbed his chest. Lou later said he felt intense pain and saw his shirt ripped open with claw marks. Donna contacted a priest, who connected her with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens studied the doll and believed it wasn't haunted by a child's ghost, but controlled by a dangerous demon pretending to be harmless. They warned the women to stop treating the doll like a toy. The Warrens took the doll away in 1971. They locked it in a special glass case in their occult museum, warning visitors never to touch it. Over the years, people claimed the doll moved, smiled, or caused bad luck if they mocked it. Today, Annabelle is still in the Warrens' museum, now run by their son-in-law. Security cameras film the case 24/7, and a priest blesses the museum twice a month. The doll inspired horror movies. But the real Annabelle looks like a normal Raggedy Ann doll, not the creepy porcelain doll shown in films. The Warrens always said Annabelle was one of the most dangerous objects they'd ever encountered. We've talked about a few cursed objects already, but this one's different. The evidence behind its curse is so strong, even skeptics might get goosebumps. Let's dive into the story of the Goddess of Death, also called the Woman of Lemb statue. Carved from limestone around 3500 BC, this ancient statue was dug up in Lemb, Cyprus in 1878. But its backstory is anything but ordinary. Nearly everyone who owned it met a grim fate. The first owner, Lord Elefant, brought the statue home in the early 1900s. Within 6 years, he and all 7 members of his family died mysteriously. Then the next owner, Ivor Minucci, and his entire family died within 4 years. A third family, the Thompson Knowles, suffered the same tragic end, all dying young. The final owner, Sir Alan Beaverbrook, lost his wife and 2 daughters shortly after getting the statue. Terrified, his sons moved out to save themselves. Sir Alan quickly donated the statue to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh. But the curse wasn't done. The museum curator who displayed it died soon after. The museum made a smart move. They locked the statue in a glass case. No one's touched it since, and no one's died. Coincidence? Maybe. But with 4 owners and nearly all their families wiped out, it's hard to ignore. Scientists have no explanation. Could there be a toxic substance in the stone, or is this a genuine ancient curse? The statue's original purpose was likely tied to fertility rituals, not death. But after centuries buried, who knows what energy it carries? Now let's talk about the cursed statue, which more recently has become known as the cursed crone of the Catskills. In the very beginning of 2016, a guy named Danny and his friend decided to go hiking in the Catskills. They ended up coming across a statue inside of a cave, way off the trail. This area already has a bad vibe to it. There are a lot of rumors of people going there to worship darker entities, and there are even rumors of animal sacrifices. They went in and found this statue near a small campsite where a campfire had once been. The statue itself was standing with some leaves, debris, dirt, and grime around it, and possibly some hair left on it as well. They checked out the statue, and it was really creepy. The statue was hand-carved, fairly small, but it had nails hammered into the eye sockets and a noose made out of some kind of cord tied around its neck. Danny was really creeped out by this, understandably so, and he said they needed to leave it alone. But his friend had the idea to take it with him because he didn't believe in any of this kind of stuff. To him, it was just a creepy statue, so he took it. A few days later, Danny got a phone call from his friend saying that he thought the statue was haunted. This was way out of character for his friend, since he wasn't into this kind of stuff. His friend explained that he had started hearing banging sounds and knocks in his house. Then, he started waking up in the middle of the night with a strong feeling that something was watching him. Shortly after, he noticed that the statue would not be where he left it the night before, and there was a strong smell of pond water in his place. At first, he thought maybe his dog was moving the statue around, but the dog was freaked out by it and started having accidents in the house, which it never had before. One night, he woke up to hearing knocks on his door around 3 in the morning. He got out of bed, checked outside, but there was nothing there. No one was on the street, no vehicles, and his motion sensor light didn't turn on. He felt an overwhelming sense of regret and fear, like he shouldn't have opened the door. He started to feel like there must be something going on with the statue. The next day, he went over to Danny's house for a movie night to try and forget about what was happening at home. After the movie night, he went home, and the house felt normal for a while. But then, he woke up to his dog freaking out. He went to investigate and noticed the strong smell of pond water again. He looked down and saw muddy, shoeless footprints on his carpet. He went to the living room and noticed the statue had moved. As he approached the statue, he started to hear breathing. The breathing sounded like his grandpa with a tracheotomy, very raspy and hoarse. He grabbed his dog and went over to Danny's house, saying he needed a guest room. Danny decided to go on Reddit and reach out to the paranormal community to see what people thought. Most people felt like the best thing to do would be to return the statue to where they found it and leave some type of offering along with an apology. Others warned against destroying it, saying not to burn it, bury it, or throw it in the river. One person recommended reaching out to Greg and Dana, a couple who have a traveling museum of the paranormal and haunted objects. Danny and his friend decided to return the statue to the cave. When they got to his apartment, it smelled strongly of pond water, and the muddy footprints were still there. The statue was not where it was left. It was found in the hallway, looking as if it had been thrown against the wall, leaving a crack. They approached the statue and started apologizing, explaining they planned to return it to the cave. As they were apologizing, the dog started freaking out. They went to investigate and both claimed to see an entity, an old naked woman dripping with water, crouched in the corner of the living room with dark, glowing eyes. They were terrified and ran outside. They decided they were too scared to go back to the cave and felt they should never return. In the daylight, they grabbed the statue, put it in a pillowcase, and sent it to Greg and Dana. Greg and Dana cataloged the statue, taking photographs and measurements. That night, they heard commotion in their office and found a small figure of Jesus had moved across the room. They set up a surveillance camera and caught footage of the statue moving on its own. A few weeks later, they smelled pond water and found wet footprints on the back of their sofa. Greg eventually had a conversation with the statue, explaining that it was safe with them, but needed to show respect. He warned that if it didn't, it would be locked in a box. As soon as he said this, Dana heard water rushing, and they found the statue had rolled off a coffee table. Greg went to grab it, and Dana caught the TV as it started to tip over. They heard 3 loud bangs, and the lights flickered. They decided to lock the statue in a box. The statue is now part of their traveling exhibit of haunted objects, kept in a locked box with a look but don't touch rule. Many people feel weird sensations when looking at it, most commonly a burning sensation in their eyes. Greg and Dana did a 24-hour live stream of the statue and caught some activity. The statue is still surrounded by questions. No one knows who made it, why it was created, or what it was used for. Some believe it's possessed by a Babylonian demon associated with water named Marduk. Māori warrior masks. In New Zealand, Māori warrior masks, also known as wakairo, are considered powerful and sacred. These intricately designed masks were traditionally used in battle and ceremonies, often representing ancestors or tribal guardians. However, many believe they carry a mysterious curse, but only for certain people. According to legend, men have no issues being near these masks, but women may experience serious misfortune. Some stories claim that women who come too close to these sacred objects may suffer from pregnancy complications, miscarriages, or bad luck. The Dybbuk Box. The Dybbuk Box is a haunted object that first caught public attention in 2004 after a newspaper article. But what exactly is it, and why has it brought so much misfortune to its owners? In Jewish stories, a Dybbuk is an evil spirit that can attach itself to a living person, often to punish or complete unfinished business. Traditionally, this spirit is said to attach to people, not objects. The box got its name from the first owner's granddaughter, who claimed her grandmother warned her never to open it. Even though it's called a Dybbuk Box, many now believe it is haunted by a demon rather than a true Dybbuk. Kevin Mannis, who owned an antique store in Portland, Oregon, found the box in 2001 at an estate sale from a 103-year-old woman named Havilah. Among many items, he discovered a locked wooden cabinet. Havilah's granddaughter told him that the cabinet had belonged to her grandmother, a Holocaust survivor, and that it should never be opened. Kevin tried to return it to her, but she refused, so he brought it back to his shop. Soon after, strange events began to occur. A staff member called Kevin, reporting the sound of breaking glass and that she had been accidentally locked in the store. When Kevin checked, no one was there, yet all the light bulbs in his basement were shattered. With these odd events on his mind, Kevin finally opened the box. Inside, he found a collection of unusual items: 2 old pennies, 2 locks of hair, 1 dark and 1 light, a small stone with the Hebrew word for life carved on it, a candlestick, a gold wine goblet, and some dried rosebuds. After opening the box, strange smells began to fill the shop. In one area, the smell was strong like jasmine flowers, while in another, it resembled cat urine, even though no cats were around. Electronics started malfunctioning, and both Kevin and his family experienced unexplained health problems and nightmares. Kevin even gave the box to his mother as a birthday present. Shortly after receiving it, she suffered a stroke and lost her ability to speak for a time. Before the stroke, she had felt a sudden cold breeze and later spelled out the words, "hate gift" on a board. Convinced that the box was cursed, Kevin took it back and tried giving it to other family members, but each time they returned it, complaining of strange smells or odd behavior from the box. Then, he began having a recurring dream where someone he trusted turned into an old, frightening witch who attacked him. Everyone who had been near the box reported the same disturbing dream, and when they finally got rid of it, the dream stopped. Unable to dispose of the box, Kevin listed it for sale on eBay in 2003, hoping someone with more knowledge of the paranormal might take it. A college student named Joseph bought the box, and in 2004, he passed it on to Jason Haxton from Missouri. Jason, who ran a museum at a university, was skeptical about the supernatural. However, soon after he acquired the box, he developed strange health issues such as hives, welts, and even began coughing up blood. Tests on the box for toxins and heavy metals came back negative, and doctors could not explain his symptoms. Determined to find an answer, Jason contacted Kevin, who then reached out to the woman he originally bought the box from. Through a long conversation, Kevin learned that Havila's cousin, Sophie, was still alive. Sophie revealed that she and Havila had held several seances in Poland before World War II. Using a pendulum and a spirit board drawn on cloth, they tried to speak with spirits. One spirit kept asking them to let it into the real world. Though they were scared, they agreed and attempted to trap the spirit in a box during a seance on November 10, 1938. Unfortunately, they could not hold the spirit, and soon after, Havila and her family were sent to a concentration camp where many died. The original box was lost. After Havila escaped to Spain, she and Sophie managed to bind the spirit to the box we now call the Dybbuk Box. Sophie also mentioned that there are two other boxes linked to this event, one with Kevin and another whose location is unknown. Even though Havila's family kept the box for many years, her granddaughter was always very scared of it because of the warnings she had received. Jason Haxton eventually consulted rabbis and scientists about the box. They all advised him to put the box inside a wooden container lined with gold. Jason followed their advice and then sealed the box in a heavy, secure container. After doing this, his strange health problems stopped. Even furniture can be cursed if you anger the wrong people. This is the story of the Conjured Chest, a troubled piece of furniture from early 1800s Kentucky. A plantation owner named Jeremiah R., also known as Jacob Coley, was preparing for the birth of his first child. Since he wasn't skilled at making things himself, he had a chest of drawers built for him. One of his slaves, a talented carpenter known as Remus, or Hosea in some accounts, was given the task, spent many hours crafting a beautiful chest, and when he finished, he proudly presented it to Jeremiah. However, Jeremiah hated the chest so much that he became so angry he beat Remus to death. This terrible act shocked and saddened the other slaves on the plantation, and in revenge, they secretly cursed the chest by sprinkling dried owl's blood on it while reciting a secret chant. Despite his dislike for the chest, Jeremiah moved it to the nursery for his newborn child. Soon, a legend spread that anyone connected to the chest would suffer a tragic fate. Over the next 100 years, a total of 18 unfortunate incidents were linked to the chest. Jeremiah's firstborn child, for whom the chest was made, died under mysterious circumstances. His nephew, whose clothes were stored in the chest, was stabbed on his 21st birthday. A couple who inherited the chest both died, one from a severe illness and the other in an accident. In 1897, a young bride who kept her wedding dress in the chest died unexpectedly. In 1909, a boy whose mittens were placed in the chest fell from a train and died. Another woman who moved the chest into her room later took her life in 1915. And in 1946, a man who kept his hunting clothes in the chest was later found to have been shot. Interestingly, Jeremiah himself escaped any of these misfortunes. By the late 1940s, the curse had taken its toll. The latest owner decided that enough was enough and had her maid attempt to break the curse. The maid followed the instructions and, sadly, died shortly afterward, becoming the last victim of the Conjured Chest. Many believe that her sacrifice finally broke the curse, or at least ended its most dangerous effects. The Obsidian Mirror. John Dee was a man who advised Queen Elizabeth I of England. Between 1558 and the 1570s, he mixed science, math, astrology, and fortune-telling to try to understand the world. Over time, he became very interested in magic and the secrets of the unknown. He even tried to talk with angels. During his many travels, John Dee began to collect magical items such as crystals, old relics, and mirrors. One special item in his collection was the Obsidian Mirror. This mirror was made from a smooth, dark volcanic glass called obsidian. In many cultures, people believe that mirrors like these can help them speak with spirits. John Dee used the obsidian mirror in seances to try to see images of angels. He worked with a medium named Edward Kelly, who said he could see spirits and even change plain metals into gold. The two of them held many seances with the mirror, and they wrote down what happened. For a long time, no one knew where the mirror came from or how John Dee got it. Then in 2021, researchers used X-rays to study the mirror. They discovered that it came from Mexico and was very similar to two other known Aztec spirit mirrors. The Aztecs believed that obsidian had healing powers and was very special. They thought that mirrors made from obsidian could capture a person's soul. Many of these mirrors were brought to Europe by Spanish explorers. It seems that John Dee sought out the obsidian mirror because he had heard of its strong magical powers. Today, you can see his obsidian mirror on display at the British Museum in London. Robert the Doll is one of the most famous cursed dolls, even before others like Annabelle became known. His story begins in the early 1900s in Key West, Florida, with a young boy named Eugene Robert Otto. When Eugene was just 4 years old, he received the doll as a gift. Many stories say that the doll was given to him by a house servant who had a grudge against his family, and some believe she even made the doll herself as a sort of curse. Regardless of the true story, little Eugene loved his new friend and named him Robert, or Rob for short. Robert is a life-size cloth doll stuffed with wood wool, standing about 40 inches tall, roughly the size of a small child. Eugene and Robert became inseparable, spending every day together. After about 6 years of calm, strange events began to occur. One night, while Eugene was fast asleep, he awoke to find Robert sitting at the foot of his bed, staring right at him. Not long after, his mother was suddenly awakened by the sound of frightened cries and the noise of furniture moving around. When she rushed into his room, she found Eugene curled up in bed, clearly terrified, with Robert still on the bed, as if keeping watch. When asked what had happened, Eugene simply said, "Robert did it." In the years that followed, whenever anything unusual happened at home, the blame always fell on Robert. People even reported hearing Eugene talking to the doll, sometimes with a mysterious, giggling voice answering back. There were moments when family members and guests swore they saw Robert moving on his own. As Eugene grew up and started his own life, he returned to his family home with his wife. There, he discovered that Robert had been locked away in a chest because his wife did not like the doll. Even though he agreed to keep Robert hidden, strange happenings continued. Guests heard soft scurrying sounds from the attic, and children passing by the house claimed they saw Robert staring at them from a window. After many years, Eugene passed away in 1974. A new family later moved into the house, and their curious daughter found Robert. Excited at first by the old doll, she soon began waking up in terror, screaming for her parents because she saw Robert moving about the room. Worried by these events, her parents quickly put the doll into a box and gave it away. Today, Robert the doll is on display at the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. Visitors can see him for themselves, and many say that his mysterious presence still lingers, keeping alive the spooky stories and legends that have made him famous. So this next one is not so much of an object, but instead more of a location. the Devil's Bridge. Before the Gotthard Tunnel was built to connect northern and southern Switzerland, travelers had to cross the dangerous Schellenen Gorge using a narrow bridge known as the Devil's Bridge. The gorge is very steep and made of solid granite. In the 12th century, people used a risky footpath with steps carved into the rock to cross the gorge. Around 1230, a wooden bridge was built 100 feet above the fast-flowing river so horses could cross safely. In the early 1300s, another bridge was built using wooden beams stretched across the wide gorge. This bridge was very important for trade, especially for moving cheese and for connecting Switzerland with Italy. Because of its importance, the bridge was rebuilt many times over the centuries. There are many old stories about who built the first bridge. Some say it was built by local mountain people, others claim a nearby blacksmith was responsible, and the most famous legend says that the devil himself helped build it. According to the tale, the people of Uri were desperate to finish the bridge, so they called on the devil for help. In return, the devil demanded the first soul that crossed the finished bridge. To avoid losing a human life, the locals tricked him by throwing a piece of bread onto the bridge. A dog, attracted by the bread, ran across instead. Angry at the trick, the devil tore the dog to pieces. Not satisfied, the devil then tried to destroy the bridge with a huge boulder. But while he was about to do so, he encountered a holy man. The man spoke out against the devil, and the devil dropped the boulder, sparing the bridge. Over the years, the Devil's Bridge has been rebuilt several times. It was even the site of an important battle during the Napoleonic Wars, when the bridge was sabotaged to stop enemy armies from crossing. Later on, the bridge was featured in a famous painting by J.M.W. Turner. We still do not know who built the original Devil's Bridge. However, near the bridge stands a large boulder that locals call the Devil's Stone. The Golden Eagle. This 1964 Dodge is blamed for the deaths of at least 14 people. According to its owner, Wendy Allen, the car started out as a police car. 3 police officers who once drove it ended their lives in murder-suicides. Later, some church members vandalized the car, and all of them met terrible ends. There's even a story about a teenager who was dared to touch the car. After doing so, he supposedly ended up killing his family and setting his house on fire. At least, that's what Allen claims. We aren't sure how much of this story is true, but it's a chilling legend that has been passed down over the years. The Blarney Stone is a famous piece of limestone that has been kept for many years at Blarney Castle in County Cork, Ireland. According to legend, if you kiss the stone, you will be given the gift of the gab, which means you gain a special talent for charming and persuading people with your words. However, the story also warns against greed. If you try to take even a tiny piece of the stone, this next one is not so much of an object, but cursed with bad luck until you return it. A cursed car is not something you hear about every day. Yet there is one known as Little Bastard, a Porsche 550 Spider, that once belonged to the famous actor James Dean. After Dean died in a deadly crash while driving this car, the working parts were removed and used to fix other vehicles. Soon after, reports started coming in that cars fitted with these parts were involved in terrible and often deadly accidents. The curse seemed to work in strange ways. Even thieves who tried to steal pieces of the car ended up getting badly hurt. There's also an eerie part of the legend involving actor Alec Guinness. Yes, the same one who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. It's said that just 7 days before his death, James Dean was warned by Guinness with a line from Rebel Without a Cause. If you get in that car, you will be found dead in it by this time next week. Sadly, as the story goes, that warning came true. This tale has grown over the years into a well-known piece of Hollywood lore. The shigir idol was discovered over 100 years ago and is thought to have been made more than 12,000 years ago. This makes it the oldest known wooden sculpture in the world, more than twice as old as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Some believe it might be the very first human-made image showing something evil. Gold miners found the idol in a Russian peat bog, buried about 4 meters deep. It was broken into 10 pieces, which were later put together to form a statue that was almost 3 meters tall. In 1914, another reconstruction suggested a different way of arranging the pieces, which would have made the idol about 5.3 meters tall. Later, in the middle of the 20th century, some pieces went missing and now only drawings of them remain. The idol was carved from a large tree that was 159 years old when it was cut down. The top of it shows a human head and face, and its body is decorated with simple geometric patterns along with 8 extra faces and several hands, giving it a look similar to a totem. People see different things in the main face's expression. Some say it looks like the face of someone singing, while others believe it seems to be screaming in anger or pain. Most experts agree that the face shows a being that is malicious or evil. Some historians think that the idol tells a hidden story about creation as believed by the person who carved it. Others suggest that the patterns on its surface might have worked like a map, or that the idol served as a warning to keep people away from a dangerous area. Devil's footprints. In the late 1700s, mysterious footprints were found in hardened volcanic rock on the slopes of the Rocca Monfina volcano in Italy. Heavy rain loosened the volcanic rock, and a landslide caused a powerful wave of water and ash that swept through the valley near the village of Torre El Picili, even destroying a local mill. The scene looked as if it were taken straight from a story in the Bible. Local people, shocked by the destruction, discovered a trail of footprints leading away from the volcano. They believed that only the devil could have made such marks. No one else would dare walk through fiery lava and leave clear imprints in solid rock. Along with these footprints, a few handprints were also seen. For a long time, many people thought these marks were the devil's own. That explanation remained popular until 2002, when archaeologists studied the prints. They found that the footprints were made by early humans who walked on 2 legs about 350,000 years ago, making them the oldest known footprints of this kind outside of Africa. The tracks were likely made by 3 individuals who were ancestors of the Neanderthals. They were a little over 5 feet tall and seemed to have been running away from the volcano during an eruption. The zigzag pattern of the prints shows that they took a switchback route down the steep slope, sometimes even using their hands for balance. Some experts even think that the makers of the footprints might have been children. A researcher from the University of Padua said that these tracks give us a unique look into the lives of some of the earliest Europeans and suggest that these people may have witnessed the volcanic eruption firsthand. We still do not know if they managed to escape the lava flow or why they were so close to the volcano. The Iceman's corpse. More than 5,300 years ago, a man was traveling through what is now northern Italy. During his journey, he was struck in the back by an arrow and died from the wound. Because the weather was very cold and the ground was covered in snow and ice, his body froze quickly and was preserved almost perfectly for thousands of years. In 1991, hikers discovered his well-preserved remains. He was given the name Ötzi after the nearby mountains where he was found. His body is one of the best preserved ever discovered, offering us a rare look into life over 5,000 years ago. Soon after Ötzi was found, a rumor began to spread about a curse. Several people connected to his discovery later died in strange or unfortunate ways. For example, the head of the forensic team who helped move Ötzi died in a car accident in 1992, and a mountaineer who assisted with the discovery was caught in an avalanche. A journalist who filmed the removal of his body later died from a brain tumor. In 2004, a tourist who had been involved with the discovery was found dead in the same spot, and the head of the mountain rescue team died of a heart attack. Even Dr. Tom Lai, who was finishing a book and had done DNA tests on Ötzi, died unexpectedly. Not everyone believes in this so-called curse. Archaeologist Conrad Spindler, for example, dismissed the idea as media hype. Many other researchers and visitors who have studied or even touched Ötzi are still alive today. In Nevada, the well-known Love Ranch, a brothel famous for its wild history, has long been the source of many legends and secrets. One story tells of a cursed mattress. It is said that in room 7, a man named Dennis Hoff died of a heart attack on October 16, 2018, with the mattress there when it happened. Even more, people claim that the same mattress was used by former NBA star Lamar Odom when he overdosed in October 2015. Over time, the staff at the brothel began to believe that the mattress had absorbed the sadness and bad luck of its past, giving it a dark power. Dr. Jack Kevorkian, commonly known as Dr. Death, was a pathologist who became infamous in the 1990s for championing physician-assisted suicide for terminally ill patients. He publicly stood by his belief that dying is not a crime, and he ultimately assisted in ending the lives of at least 130 patients who suffered from severe incurable diseases. For his controversial actions, Kevorkian was convicted of homicide in 1999. Throughout his life, Jack Kevorkian lived in a variety of places, including spending time living out of a van. It was in this very van that he carried out some of his most disturbing actions, helping patients end their lives. After Kevorkian's 2011 death, his notoriety only seemed to grow, with his legacy continuing to stir ethical and legal debates over euthanasia and assisted suicide. The 1968 Volkswagen van, rusty from years of neglect but unmistakably tied to a chilling chapter in history, became part of Zach's collection. Now displayed as a gruesome piece of macabre memorabilia, the van sits in his museum, where visitors can observe an object that once symbolized both Kevorkian's crusade for patient rights and the dark ways in which he carried out his controversial practices. Charles Manson, the infamous criminal who founded a cult known as the Manson family, operated in California during the late 1960s and early 1970s. His group, which numbered around 100 people, led a non-traditional lifestyle and often experimented with psychoactive drugs. Many of his followers viewed him as a messianic figure, almost equating him with Jesus Christ, and imitated his behavior. This devotion culminated in a series of murders, 9 deaths occurring at 4 different locations during July and August of 1969. In 1971, Manson was convicted on charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with the deaths of 7 individuals, including the actress Sharon Tate. When Manson eventually died, his body was cremated. Notably, some of his adherents collected fragments of his ashes as keepsakes. These relics even inspired artistic creations, such as the Ryan Almighty blood paintings of Manson. In one particularly striking work, Manson's eyes are depicted using his own cremains, mixed with the artist Ryan's blood. While the technique and creativity behind the artwork are remarkable, the use of Manson's ashes adds a uniquely macabre twist. Today, this painting is part of a museum exhibit showcasing various pieces of Manson memorabilia. The Screaming Skull of Burton Agnes Hall. Burton Agnes Hall is a building from the Tudor era in England, and it is famous for its eerie legend. The story goes that the hall has been haunted by the ghost of Anne Griffith ever since it was built. Anne was one of the daughters of the man who built the house. According to the legend, she loved the hall so much that after she was violently mugged, her dying wish was to have a part of her body buried inside the house. They chose her skull. The skull is said to still be hidden somewhere within the walls of the hall, although no one knows exactly which room it is in. There are tales that people have tried to remove the skull in the past, but every time they did, Anne's ghost would create such a commotion that the skull had to be returned. At Denver International Airport, there's a very eerie statue that many people say is cursed. The statue, known as Blucifer, is a 32-foot-tall blue horse with glowing red eyes. Its scary look and history give it a bad reputation. The story behind the statue is tragic. The artist, Luis Jimenez, who created it, died in a terrible accident when a part of the horse fell on him. Because of this accident and its frightening appearance, some believe the statue brings bad luck. Over the years, there have been many calls for the statue to be taken down, but so far, public petitions have not been successful. The Destiny Ring. Rudolph Valentino was one of the most famous silent film stars, known for his many hit movies. Sadly, he died very young at the age of 31. A few years before his death, he bought a ring from a jeweler in California, even though he was warned that the ring was cursed. After he started wearing it, many of his later films failed, and he was seen with the ring on his deathbed. When Valentino passed away, his lover inherited the ring. Soon after, she became ill and ended up giving the ring to someone else. Over time, many people who owned the ring met with strange or untimely deaths. Because of all these dark events, the ring is now kept safe in a bank vault where no one can touch it. Most people take selfies for fun, but 24-year-old Amanda Taylor shocked everyone when she posted one after committing a brutal crime, with no hint of remorse. In April 2015 on the Blue Ridge Parkway, a white Jeep pulled off a lonely road. Amanda, armed with a gun, stepped out, found her partner Sean Ball, 33, barely awake in the car, and coldly admitted she'd used him to get what she wanted. Then she shot him in the face and dragged his body aside before driving off. Amanda's troubled life began long before that fateful day. Born on March 27, 1991, in Christiansburg, Virginia, she enjoyed a comfortable early childhood until she became a rebellious teen. At 12, she met her best friend Mariah and soon began a pattern of running away and misbehaving, once even causing a scene at school by vowing to hurt everyone, resulting in a police intervention. By 2011, she'd been charged with making illegal drugs, foreshadowing the darker path ahead. In her mid-teens, Amanda met Rex Taylor, 2 years her senior, and they quickly bonded over a fascination with all things macabre. They collected crime memorabilia, admired stories of serial killers, and even communicated with notorious prisoners. Rex's own life was marred by a pill addiction that began at age 12 when his father, Charles Taylor, supplied him with drugs, a habit that later led to dangerous car crashes with their young children aboard. Despite moments of tenderness, Rex's addiction, fueled in part by his father's continual supply, tore at their family. Amanda and Rex stayed together from their teenage years. Amanda met Rex when she was around 15 or 16, and he, 2 years her senior, eventually became her husband. By the time they were in their early 20s, their marriage was already under strain. In April 2014, after years of repeated breakups and reconciliations fueled by Rex's drug abuse, Amanda reached her breaking point. She told Rex, despite still loving him, that he needed to leave their home until he could quit using pills. Tragically, within that same month, Rex ended his own life. His suicide was confirmed when their nearly 7-year-old son, who had been eagerly awaiting his father's return, was left heartbroken as Rex never came home. This marked a devastating turning point in Amanda's life and set the stage for the further tragic events that followed. Although she might have followed him into oblivion, unfinished business, and mounting anger, especially toward Charles, whom she blamed for Rex's downfall, pushed her further down a dark path. After Rex's death, Amanda became obsessed with violence. Grieving, she convinced herself that Rex had taught her how to kill. She began watching and imitating violent videos, even one that showed teenagers carrying weapons to school, and started to act like the criminals she once admired. Adding to this disturbing change, a death row inmate named Paul, who had been Rex's friend, sent her $1,000, which only deepened her commitment to this dangerous path. Soon, she began working with Sean Ball, a man who had long admired her and lived in the basement of her friends Mariah and Johnny's house. On March 27, 2015, Amanda turned 24, the same birthday she used to share with Rex and celebrated with Mariah, Johnny, and Sean. The day was especially painful as it was the first birthday without Rex. In her distress, Amanda armed herself with a knife and insisted on visiting Rex's grave. Overwhelmed by depression and instability, she collapsed there and threatened to kill herself and take her children with her so they could all be reunited with Rex. Her friends managed to force her into a car and drove her to her mother's house around 2:30 a.m. However, once outside, Amanda broke free again, waving her knife and threatening to take her 2 young children, aged 7 and 2, if anyone tried to stop her. Fearing for everyone's safety, someone called the police. Amanda was arrested and taken to St. Albans Hospital in Christiansburg for mental health and drug treatment. This wasn't the first time she had faced such a crisis. She had been hospitalized twice before because of her uncontrollable anger. Even though her mother and Mariah pleaded for her to stay in the hospital longer, she was released within a week with medications she never took. Shortly after, social services removed her children, leaving her isolated and desperate. With few options left, she began plotting with Sean, who was still deeply in love with her, and even quit his job to help with her dangerous plans. Later, Mariah warned Amanda and Sean that their next move might lead to more tragedy. Despite this, the pair planned a short trip to Sean's parents' house on April 2, 2015. They stayed in a motel that night and returned the next day with some of Sean's belongings. Family members later noticed that Sean had taken 2 pistols from a gun safe, and he even replaced the knife that Mariah had taken from Amanda on her birthday. Then, on a spring day in April 2015 at precisely 3:27 p.m., a time chosen to echo the shared birthday of Amanda and Rex on March 27, Amanda and Sean drove to Charles Taylor's rundown house in Ironton, Virginia. Their initial plan was to use a knife to inflict emotional and physical pain on him. First, Sean struck Charles in the head with a crowbar. Once the 59-year-old man fell, Amanda took the new knife and stabbed him 31 times. The brutality was unmistakable. Blood splattered across walls, paintings, and a couch. Amanda snapped a selfie beside the corpse and posted it online with a chilling caption explaining that she had a good reason for killing him. He had ruined Rex with his opioid addiction. She warned the police not to search for her, claiming she only wanted to join Rex in peace, and even sent her bloody selfie to a crime blogger who promptly handed it over to the authorities. Having just tasted blood, Amanda and Sean fled the scene, heading toward Tennessee. They spent a restless night in a rundown hotel in Bristol, only to realize by morning that they were running out of money, food, and gas. In a moment of cold calculation, Amanda gave Sean an ultimatum: either embark on a murderous spree to steal what they needed, or surrender. During a break, they encountered 2 teenage girls visiting relatives. Amanda tried to lure them near the Jeep, expecting Sean to attack, but his refusal, citing his mother's feelings, incensed her. In that fury, Amanda recalled Sean's earlier boast of being a former Navy SEAL, a lie, as he was quiet and unassuming. Finding an empty bottle of pills on the car floor and reading a farewell letter Sean had written to his mother, she decided he was too weak to be her partner. Driving the Jeep back onto the empty Blue Ridge Parkway, Amanda pulled over and coldly told Sean that she had only used him for his car, money, and stolen weapons. Then she shot him in the face, dragged his body from the car, and snapped a final picture of his face, unaware that Sean would survive to later testify. Amanda continued sending incriminating photos to a crime blogger via a disposable phone, even as surveillance videos from gas stations pieced together her route. Eventually, police deployed spike strips to halt her car. Highway patrol officers pulled her from the vehicle, handcuffed her, and noted with disdain that she complained about not being treated with respect. In the interrogation room, Amanda maintained a detached air. Sipping a soft drink and twirling her hair, she eventually admitted to killing both Charles and, by her account, Sean. When she learned Sean had survived, his bullet having only grazed his jaw, she appeared disappointed. Later, during her trial, Amanda recounted how, for the first time since Rex's death, she had felt truly happy as she stabbed screaming Charles. She likened the sensation to riding a roller coaster and expressed no remorse, even declaring that she wanted a death sentence for her work. The jury, taking just 30 minutes to deliberate, found her guilty. The judge condemned her as the embodiment of evil and sentenced her to life in prison. Sean eventually reached a plea deal, a 60-year sentence with 41 years suspended, and now serves time in Craigsville, Virginia. Meanwhile, Amanda's best friend Mariah manages her social media accounts and, together with Johnny, cares for Rex's children, now in the custody of social services. Rex's mother, Melissa, continues to grieve, insisting that despite his flaws, Rex was kind and would never have allowed such horrors to occur.